Hello. So this is Ariel, and I wanted to do a video really briefly about domestic violence. For several reasons. One, because I've seen some shit on the internet that a lot of you have probably maybe either seen or scrolled past. That really made me sick to my motherfucking stomach. It made my stomach hurt. But also because I feel like seasonally, during the holidays, there's typically a sort of like an uptick in domestic violence, sometimes because it's a high stress time of year, and other times because of money, and other times because of the people that you'll be around can either, increase or decrease those acts of violence and or isolation and isolation and oppression. So I'll start by saying that I have been a victim of domestic violence since I was at least 4 or 5 years old, meaning my father was physically abusive to my mother, and I never saw that. I never saw him physically hit her, but I saw I would consider remnants of that abuse, which was I was maybe 5 years old, and I found my mother on the kitchen floor in what to me appeared to be a dead position. So when I came down the stairs and I looked around the corner and I saw her, she appeared to be dead. And that's a memory that I have that is very clear in my mind at my age now, that is 30 years old. A memory that I have of my mother laying on the kitchen floor. I know what street we lived on. I know what duplex we lived in. I remember it like it was yesterday. The implications of that event and of my father's actions turned this man who I was completely and utterly in love with into a fucking monster. Meaning I had nightmares for years and years and years that he was going to come and kill all of us. Period. He was just going to come and murder us. And I would have nightmares that me and my brothers and sisters, we would be playing, and I would look out the window and I would see him coming, and I would go and hide or pretend like I didn't know he was there because I knew that he was there to kill us. That is the 180 turn that act of domestic violence completely changed the trajectory of every single person in my immediate family's life. Is that his actions that day changed the trajectory of every single one of our lives in that house. Period. From PTSD to bad relationships, to mimicking that bad behavior. All those things have transpired since, his actions toward my mother and thus all the children in that home. And then even as an adult, me as an adult, I was in a domestic violent relationship for I would say a long time. And long is subjective, but any amount of time that you're with somebody that's kicking your fucking ass is a long time. Okay, so I'm not ashamed to say that. It's slightly embarrassing because I'm definitely a person that if you know me, then you would say, Ariel, like, what the fuck? Why would you be, and how could you be? And I wouldn't think that you would be. And guess what? The fuck. I wouldn't think I would either. But we all do dumb shit. We all think that some of us think that certain actions are a demonstration of love when really they're not demonstrations of anything but that person's character. And I'll also say this, just like if a motherfucker cheat on you once, he gonna cheat on your ass again. If a nigga go upside your fucking head, and I don't mean nigga like black, I mean any color motherfucker. And I don't mean just a male, because a woman go upside men's heads all the time. If somebody go upside your head once, they gonna go upside your head again. Period. I've never been in a domestically violent relationship where the person is only gotten violent one time. It doesn't happen, right? It's a pattern of behavior that gets worse, period. And it can start with verbal abuse, like you're a fat, stupid bitch. I hate you, you're ugly, everyone hates you. That shit is also abuse. So if there's someone in your life that is talking to you like that, you don't have any other place to go. Who else would want you? Only I want you. You ain't shit. That shit is also domestic violence. It doesn't have to be somebody kicking your ass for it to be violent. That the making you feel like there's nowhere else for you to go, where that's the only place that you can be, that you'll feel safe or feel wanted or feel valued, is another form of abuse. It's also a form of oppression. And psychologically, that shit does the same type of damage as kicking your fucking ass, because you begin to believe the shit that this individual is telling you. That shit is real. I wouldn't say this shit because I want people to know that I got my ass kicked for an extended period of time. I don't think there's shit cute about that. And like I said, it's more embarrassing to me than anything. And it's a lot of the reason why women that look like me won't say shit about it, because it's embarrassing, because it's a pride thing, because you don't want to be seen as weak, as dumb, as the bitch who will stay with the motherfucker who's kicking her ass. But the fact of the matter is, at some point, you have to say, which is what I had to say to myself, I love myself more than I love any motherfucking body else. And I have to love myself enough to pack my shit and get the fuck on. Period. Because if I don't, one of us is going to kill the other person. Facts. And I also said to myself, my child deserves to see their mom happy. Period. The energy that I get from another motherfucker is the energy that I give. So if somebody's giving me bad, toxic energy, that's what the fuck I'm going to be giving to anybody else, because that's all I have in me. That's all I'm getting, so that's all I'm able to give. So I have to say to myself, not only do I love me more than I love anybody else, but my child deserves to see their mother happy. And how fucking dare I live a life where my child doesn't ever get to see a happy mom, and may or may not ever see their dad. You know what I'm saying? It just, to me, it was an easy decision to choose me and my child over an abuser and an oppressor. So again, going from a child that witnessed domestic violence and seeing how, I lived in fear of that individual for a really long time, until I was old enough. I was scared of my dad until I was old enough to know that I could kill him. And that's really hard for me to, when I thought about that, I thought how fucking sad that was, that that's how I had to treat him in my life. But I didn't feel comfortable with him until I knew that I could take him. Period. That was my mindset. That was the only thing that allowed me to be with him, alone, was because I felt like if I say something that he doesn't like, then I can take him on, because he's not going to, he doesn't control me, and I'm not going to be in fear of him. So that's how I looked at it. But that's really sad that that's how I had to view him, because he was my father. He is my father, period. But he was also my mother's terrorist. Facts, and he didn't just terrorize her. He did terrible, foul, disgusting fucking shit to other women. And that shit will always stick with me too. So, as a child being a victim of domestic violence, as a grown woman being a victim of domestic violence, me witnessing other siblings of mine in their own domestic violence situations, me witnessing my friends in their own domestic violence situation, the shit makes me sick to my stomach. It hurts my motherfucking feelings, especially when I've removed myself from domestic violence situations, or, the last one, period, the last one. I just refuse to go back. I also refuse to, allow other people to bring that energy to my space, to my dwelling, to my sanctuary. You know what I'm saying? And I feel strongly about domestic violence said, look, if you're my friend and you're dealing with a domestic violence situation, it can't be a play. It can't be I'm upset and I'm leaving now, but I'll be back later, with this guy. It can't be a situation like that, because you understand this. When you are leaving a motherfucker and you are in a domestically violent situation, that shit is dangerous. A motherfucker will murder your ass about the shit. Not only will they murder you, they'll murder your kids. They'll murder your friends and your friends' kids and your friend's mama. They'll kill everybody in the fucking house about a breakup. Period. So when you fucking involve other people in your domestic violent shit, when you ask somebody to help you, understand that you're asking them to risk their fucking life. And as the person who's helping, understand that you are risking your life, you're risking your safety and that of your family. So if a motherfucker wants your help, they need to be firm in that shit. Period. Either they're going to stand on the shit or they not. But understand, you need to know that person well enough to understand whether or not you're going to put yourself in those positions. Because there's places that women can go. Women's shelters. I've lived in a women's shelter as a child. There are places that you can be that you don't have to worry about a motherfucker showing up and being able to find you and things like that, because there's discretion. But just understand, if you're the victim or you're the person helping the victim, it's a dangerous fucking situation, and you need to be serious as fuck about the action that you're taking to exit that situation. And your exit it's not a revolving door. It's a fucking one way. You gotta leave, and that's the fuck it. And understand that shit when you decide to leave. Period. It's gonna be fucking dangerous, but cut all that shit off at the motherfucking waist. Cut it off and go. Period. You gonna have to, because if you don't, the motherfucker gonna kill you. It's as simple as that. If you play that fucking game back and forth, all it leads to is a more dangerous pattern of behavior, which often ends in murder. Period. So as a woman who's gotten her ass kicked, as a woman who grew up in a home, or at least in the beginning of my life witnessed the carnage of what was my dad essentially trying to murder my mother downstairs with all her motherfucking children on the next fucking floor. If your ass is the one laying hands on a motherfucker, you need to think about that shit. The shit is disgusting. It's not cute. If you know a motherfucking guy or a girl that thinks that putting their hands on their partner is funny, thinks it's cute, thinks it's the way they're supposed to do shit, if you sit back and you watch the shit or you listen to the shit and you don't say something, you know what I'm saying? You don't try to correct a motherfucker. And I'll also say this. A lot of times people are abusers or abusive individuals. They don't bring their family around other people, meaning they don't come as a group, because they don't want other people to see how they treat their family. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times a guy will say, I don't want, these people staying here, or I don't want that person staying here, or I don't want us to go and stay with these people. It's because abuser doesn't want other people to see or to hear the way they treat you, because they know the shit's inappropriate, and they know that they know other people will say something. So that's where the isolation comes in at. If you're never around other people, there's no one else to witness this inappropriate behavior. And then if you ever say anything, everybody else will say, well, we don't know shit about it because we ain't never seen it. Of course they haven't, because that motherfucker created every situation in which no one would see the inappropriate way in which you're treated. So, you need to think about that. Sometimes you don't even see your relationship as oppressive, and you don't see your partner as your oppressor. But that's exactly what they are. When somebody tells you what you can and can't wear, where you can and can't go, how long you can and can't be gone, shit like that. When you got to check in with a motherfucker, right? In theory, you should have trust. But if you have to check in with somebody, you're a child, right? If you got to ask permission for some shit, you're a child. If you're scolded after you do something, you're a child. And what make the shit worse is when you do this shit in front of children. When an adult scolds another adult in front of children, then they get a certain impression by that type of shit. You know? And I think what's, for me, the disconnect I had with my father and my mother is that I would have never known he was the abusive individual that he was had I not seen my mom laying on the floor in a position that I thought she was dead. I would have never known that that's the type of person that he was if I didn't see it for myself. Because I've never ever heard my parents argue. Even when I was a teenager, I never heard them argue. Period. And before or after that incident, I never seen my dad put his hands on my mom. I've never seen that. I've never seen him put his hands on anyone. I mean, he slapped me one time, but other than that, I've never ever witnessed him put his hands on anyone. But I know from that one action that the things that have been told to me that he's done, I know that he's done them because they're consistent with that other behavior. What he did to my mother is consistent with what he's done to other women and vice versa. And that's also what makes a domestic abuser scary, is that to one group of people, they can appear very nice and charismatic and charming and loving. And to another group of people, he can be a complete fucking monster, period. And had I not witnessed that one situation, I probably wouldn't have believed that he was the bad person that he was, period. So, if you're an abuser, be mindful that it doesn't take a lot to imprint upon a child's mind, whether you are a good and safe person or whether you're somebody to be feared. And I would hope that, whether you're an abuser of your mother, of your children's mother or your children's father, you should be mindful of the fact that your children will likely be fearful of you, period. Even if they love you and they're outwardly affectionate to you, the fear is there because they've seen your behavior demonstrated to other people. And it's more of a fear love than it is an organic love that they have. And I say that from a child that had organic love and then had a fear love. Like, I love you, but it's only because I'm scared of you, right? And what would it be like if I didn't love you, right? And I also say this, when I was probably 9 or 10, maybe a little older than that, and me and my brother and sister Aisha and Akeem had to go live with our dad for a while. This is a time when I was still very fearful of him. And I remember thinking about this years later. And even at the time, I thought about it. And I never called my dad dad. After he did what he did to my mother, I never called him dad. I never said, hey, dad, or I never said that. When I spoke to him out loud, I never said dad. I just, something in me would not allow me to refer to him like that. I just couldn't do it. And I remember when I would talk to Aisha and Akeem and I would say, be asking like, where is he? I would say, like, where's our dad? Or go ask our dad. Or, whatever I would say, I would always say our dad. I would never say dad. Every time I would refer to him, I would always say our dad. And at the time, I thought about it like, well, I don't really want to call him dad because it just doesn't feel right. But when I got older and I thought about the way I was speaking, it was because that fucking fear that I had of him would not allow me to call him dad, would not allow me to be at peace or comfortable with calling him dad. And to be honest, as a grown ass woman, that is really fucking sad. When I think about that, that shit is sad as fuck. That as a 9 or 10 year old girl, I couldn't and wouldn't even refer to my dad as dad, right? I had to call him our dad. Is our dad here? Is our dad coming? Go get our dad, right? It is sad as fuck that I couldn't even just say dad, nothing. And even as an adult, I just couldn't. I couldn't. So that's the lasting effects of domestic violence. I mean, it's this is one example, right, of the lasting effects of domestic violence. Is that your children will even have a hard time referring to you, could have a hard time referring to you, could have a hard time relating to you, and can grow up with this immense fear of you, and also this feeling that I may have to take them on, right? You may have to take that parent on in a violent situation. And that's a really sad place to be as a child, but a sadder place to be as an adult when you feel like there could ever be a situation where you'd have to take on your parent because of their violence. So, like I said, if you're an abuser, I hope that, and you probably don't, but I would hope that, you reconsider the damage that you're doing to yourself, to the mental of the individuals that you afflict, whether you think that they can hear it or not. The energy that you give as an abuser, the oppression that you create for an individual as an abuser could last decades, if not someone's entire lifetime. And if you're the one being abused, be mindful that the longer you stay, the worse shit'll be. The more trapped you'll feel, and likely the more trapped you'll be. The more reluctant you will be to leave. And if you're the person who's helping an individual, leave, be as helpful as you can, but understand that it's a dangerous situation to place yourself in. And if you have, your own family, you have to be mindful of that, and the seriousness of the situation, and, and protecting yourself and your family. And don't be complicit in domestic violence, whether you see about it or you hear about it or somebody that is a party to it. Check the shit. I really don't give a fuck who it is, whether it's a friend or whether it's a family member. If you are an oppressor, if you are a domestically violent person, if I witness this shit or I hear about it, I speak on it, and I'll speak to the motherfucker who's doing it, and I'll speak to the person who the shit's being inflicted on, because I don't give a fuck and I don't like it, and I'll pack my shit or put my shoes on and I'll leave, period, because I'm not gonna sit the fuck around and be a party to that destructive, toxic, dangerous shit. This shit can go from 0 to 100 quick, fast, and in a motherfucking hurry. So, you have to nip that shit in the bud. Call people out for the, domestic violence, which to me really turns into a terroristic situation because they're terrorizing everybody in the fucking home or the space with their violent words or actions. Period. Motherfuckers are scared. So, if you're ever in a situation where you see somebody acting like that, if you can't handle them, get the fuck up and leave. Don't sit around and be a party to that shit, because I feel like when you're quiet in a domestic violence person, an abuser gets away with that shit. They're in a room full of people and don't nobody check them, or everybody's like, oh, just let him calm down or let her calm down. You help them justify that fucking bad behavior. You embolden that bad behavior. Recording the shit emboldens the bad behavior. It intensifies an already vulnerable situation. Everybody in a domestic violence situation is vulnerable, from the motherfucking abuser to the abusee to the kids. Everybody is vulnerable. Bringing out your fucking phone and trying to air the shit out, either for the police or for other people to witness, doesn't do anything but increase the fucking tension that already exists. So if your phone is not out to call fucking 911 for some help, put that shit away, because you're not helping the situation. Even if your thoughts are, I want to record my abuser, then call fucking 911, because it's a recorded line. But to use your phone or use any recording device as a way to exploit a motherfucker in a situation that's bad and it's toxic, in a relationship that's bad and it's toxic, it doesn't do shit but add fuel to a damn fire. I'll end with that. Domestic violence is not the shit to play with. It really fucking is not. And if you know anybody who's ever been in one of those situations, then you know the shit is not funny and you know it ain't shit to play with. And if you're smart, what you won't do is help be complicit in the shit and push the shit around the table for everybody to get a piece of, because it ain't the shit that you want everybody to get a piece of. Dead the shit. Period. Put a fucking period on it and end it. As far as making the shit a joke or making light of it. Stop the shit. Period. Don't fucking entertain it. And you shouldn't be entertaining anybody who behaves that motherfucking way, because what's the incentive to not continue to do that shit? What the fuck does that say about your character that you stand behind and you stand for shit like that? It shouldn't matter how much motherfucking money a motherfucker got. You shouldn't feel okay with a broke motherfucker kicking another person's ass, in a domestic situation. Period. You shouldn't feel comfortable with the shit. It should bother you. Other men shouldn't feel comfortable seeing a male or another man behaving that fucking way. Just like a woman shouldn't feel comfortable watching her female friend behave in a violent fucking manner towards her child's father or her husband or what the fuck ever. An abuser can be a man, an abuser can be a motherfucking woman. And if that's your ass, you need to get some motherfucking help. Period. If your ass is an abuser, you need to get some fucking help. And if your ass is being abused, you need to get the fuck on.